Today we are making this here scarf, infinity scarf or cowl. It goes round, 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 and it has these here knots at intervals to give it a bit more character. We start here and crochet back and forth, making these groups of trebles. And that's trebles using American terms. It's double treble in British crochet terms. Otherwise we just go back and forth doing exactly the same, except that we have some of these larger holes that we will then pass the rest of it through to get these here knots. And we have 10 rows of these in between one hole and another hole. To get this here sort of a floppy, lacy look, what you need is the kind of yarn that isn't too hard. The one I'm using is a mix of cotton, viscose and linen. Bamboo works great, and so does cotton, but the cotton needs to be soft kind, not mercerized cotton. And then to get this look, the stitches are quite big. You need a hook that is far too big for your yarn. So this here yarn suggests a size 4mm hook, but I'm using 7. So I have gone up 3 sizes in the hook. And that is so that I get it very loose. So in some ways you could say that I'm crocheting wrong to get it so big loops out of it. Let's start then. By the way, there's no significance to me using a double-ended hook. It's just that it's the only one I could find in size 7. So I have a slip knot and then chain 29. Chain 29 and chain loosely. Here's 29, and then we start with the trebles. That means you always take 2 yarn overs and insert the hook into the 5th stitch from the hook. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 here, and a treble through 2 each time, a yarn over and through 2 loops. Now we have 2 there, I mean this chain counts as 1. Then chain 1 and again a treble, 2 yarn overs, and we go into the same stitch here. And and another one into the same one. So we'll always have 4 trebles in the same place. And there's a chain between the first 2 and the second 2. Then again chain 1 and 2 yarn overs and find the 6th stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th. And here 2 groups of 2 trebles. And you may notice that in spite of having a big hook, I still also crochet quite loose. I'm not in any way trying to tighten all these loops here. And then after you have 2, then chain 1 and 2 more trebles into that same stitch here. Like that, and then continue like this until the end. Chain 1, treble into the 6th stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th. There. And again 2, and then chain 1 and 2 trebles. So now I'll chain 1 and do this again. And then you'll have 2 more groups until you get to the end. Here, that's the first row done. Then for the second row, chain 4 for turning, and so turn. And we'll be doing these same kind of groups now all the time, but we insert the hook under the chain 1 loop here. So 2 yarn overs and the hook into that there loop in between the 2 groups, and then otherwise the same. So we'll make 2 first, then chain 1 and 2 into that same chain space. And as you can see, I'm crocheting very loose all the time, as well as this big hook makes it loose anyway. So here we have the group of 2 and 2, and then chain 1, and then we skip to the next group and in the middle of it, so 2 yarn overs and twice 2 trebles in there. Chain 1 and 2 trebles. And this is what we repeat. Like that. And then chain 1 and continue until the end of the row, and then turn and have 4 chains, and then just continue the same. So we'll continue like this here until we have 5 rows, and after that then we'll make the first hole that we'll use for that then knot. So 5 rows. That's 5 rows. 5. And then we'll make a bit bigger hole here in the middle that we'll be using then for making the knot. First, make 2 groups like this, just like before. So 2 like that first. Here I have 2 on this here row, and then we do this bit so that there won't be this treble group at all. Chain 1, and then we'll make 1 treble round that there loop before the next group. So 1 treble into this here bigger space. Like this. And then chain 5. 5 and skip over these here trebles and a treble on the other side of that group into that larger space. Like that there. And then we go back to working it normally. Chain 1 and so on. You make another group like that. And then finish this row and start the next one, and then we'll look how we'll work when we come to this here bit on the next row. So I'm here now, coming to this here bit where we made that there hole, and now what I'll simply do, I will use that as I use the middle of here, so I'll make the 2 groups of 2 trebles into this here chain. Chain 1, and then the trebles into that their largest loop. Hook under the 5 chains we made. And another one. Chain 1 and the other 2 into that same loop. Like that, and you may need to push them a bit too, so they don't spread out too much. And then you continue just normally. And from here now then continue so that there will always be 10 rows. So here's 1 row and then 9 more rows before you make the next hole. We will have 5 rows in the beginning and also at the end, because we are going to join the start and the end. If we take a look at this one that's finished, so there's 5 in the beginning, then there's 10 rows here in between 2 of these holes. And then it depends of course how long you will want it to be. Mine is 140 centimeters long, or about 55 inches, and has 4 of these here bigger holes. We had 5 rows in the beginning and we will have 5 rows at the end after this here hole, so that the holes will be at even distances. So after we finish, then we'll sew this up. So at this stage continue your scarf until it's long enough and until you have 5 rows after the last bigger hole. Then fasten off and leave quite a long tail of yarn, because we're going to sew it then. And at this stage now you may want to block it, either by wetting it and letting it dry, or depending on the material you have, you might be able to steam iron from a distance, certainly not over it, but I did that because this is cotton, linen and viscose. So I had steam iron and went over, you know, a good distance over it to block it a bit. Then comes the fun part. Take hold of the beginning of the scarf and pass that through from the front to the back through that there larger hole, and then open it up like that, and then continue. There's the next larger bit here, the hole here, and again take the whole scarf now from the front to back, pass it through there tightly so that all of it goes through that there hole. So this is how it goes then, and then you continue. I have 2 more of them and you may have even more. So you take always the entire scarf and look for the next bit there and pull it through from front to the back. There, until you have all of them done. After that, bring the 2 ends of the scarf together and check that it isn't twisted any more than with the knots, and put your yarn into a needle and just sew stitch by stitch here. All of these, so that then it stays together. Or you could also crochet it using slip stitches, but I prefer sewing, and just check that it goes, you know, there's not the same number of stitches, so you sort of have to make sure that it goes together like that. Like this. And this is what it looks like.